Yeah.
You're on.
My name is Beverly Sanders, and today is Tuesday, August 6, 2019. Today we are at McFarlin Memorial United Methodist Church in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm visiting with 3 McFarlin members who've been instrumental in the creation and/or the continued operation of McFarlin's Thursday Assistance Program or the McFarlin Food Pantry. They will introduce themselves as we get started. This discussion has been arranged to supply information on these programs for our McFarlin archives. Joe Sanders will be assisting with the recording equipment and sometimes adding a comment or a question. This interview is for the historical records of McFarlin Memorial United Methodist Church, as well as the Voices of Oklahoma United Methodism project of the Oklahoma Conference Oral History Research Program, which is coordinated through the Commission on Archives and History with the support of the Oklahoma United Methodist Historical Society. I appreciate the 3 of you coming, take some time out of your afternoon today to sit down with us and see if we can get a little information down on this program. We suddenly realized a few weeks ago that we had absolutely nothing in the archives about the food pantry, or for that matter, about the Thursday Assistance either. So we started inquiring, and Mary supplied us a few names, and Nancy supplied us a few names, and so we have come together with this group. So what I'm going to do, I'll ask each of you to introduce yourselves with just a quick explanation of what you have to do with the food pantry or the Thursday Assistance, and we'll move on from there. So,
Starting with me,
Mary.
I'm Mary Salee. I have been coming or been a member of McFarlin since 1990. I got involved, I think, we're not quite sure, when I started with the pantry in maybe 2006 or 7, and got roped into doing it from Reverend George Shepherd, who was doing the scheduling. So I got in on the administrative end and then started making sure that we had workers to cover the shifts. And then I started working the shifts and have been doing that ever since. And I'm still in charge of scheduling, but now 5 people on a shift instead of 1. So that's where we are to present day.
Okay, Phil.
Yes, I'm Phil Finn. I served McFarlin as senior minister. Came here in 1979, and at that time was a part of what we call the Thursday Assistance Program, which ultimately grew into this much larger program that Nancy and Mary Salee will talk about.
My name is Nancy Koplowitz. I've been a member of McFarlin since 1967. I got involved with the pantry. I was recruited by Marty Buzzard. She and I were at a hunger conference, and she grabbed me and asked me to help, and I came and did it. And at first I was bagging groceries, and over the years I've taken on more responsibilities, and now I pretty much help schedule and find volunteers for bagging and for shopping.
So let's move ahead, and I'm going to ask Phil. I believe his memories of the food pantry probably go back to first, and we'll let him explain beginnings of the Thursday Assistance and how it operated and how it led to food pantry.
I came here in 1979, and my experience has been that all churches have people coming into them asking for assistance for a variety of needs. But McFarlin seemed to have more than an uncommon number coming in. And at the time that I came here, the business manager and I myself would do an interview and intake and do what we could to help people who showed up whenever they showed up. But we had so many people coming that it was interfering with our work in the office. So we decided that we would say, yes, we will help people who come by for assistance, but they had to come by at a particular time. And that time was designated as Thursday. I've forgotten why we chose Thursday, but that's what we did. And I think it was between the hours of 9 and 12. And I relinquished my office so that anybody who was doing the interviewing, whether it be Gene Powell, the business manager, or someone else, could have that privacy to do some intake. We actually kept files on people. We assisted them with utilities, with medicine, with food, with gas, with lodging, whatever the need happened to be. Ultimately, we recruited volunteers to take over the program so that Jean and I, staff members, would not have to spend so much time doing it. And I think the first one to preside over that program was Vesta Bauman, who did it for a very good number of years. And then ultimately, we realized that we needed to do more than simply network with other helping agencies in town to assist these people. Very often we'd call the utility companies or we'd call another church to donate so much money to help somebody, just a whole series of people and organizations. We realized that food was a problem. And that's when we began a food closet, nothing the size of what ultimately will be talked about here. And I'm not sure where we got the money for all that. We must have budgeted some of it. I do remember making special appeals for some of it. And at one time, we had a small, I believe, specially constructed cabinet in one of the Sunday school rooms that was filled with groceries that were sacked. And I think that Donnie Jeffries was the one who really oversaw that, and Bob Jeffries, her husband, may have been the one who built that cabinet. I'm not real sure. But that was the beginning of all of this, which ultimately expanded into this very fine program that Mary and Nancy will talk about.
So, Mary, Nancy, which one of you would like to go first?
I don't know if we wanted to read what George had.
Oh, that's right. In fact, yes, thank you.
That's what I was about to say.
I had that scheduled to come here, and then
He's kind of the transition, I think, from you all to more laity being involved.
yeah, George Shepard came to be our program director, and I believe, from what he says, it must have been about 2003. Does that sound right? So George came to be our program director, and Mary had contact with him, so she was good enough to email him and tell him that we needed some information from him, and he sent this answer for us as far as what he could remember about the beginnings of the food pantry. He says, I'm not terribly clear myself. There was a minimal pantry going on when I got there in January of 2003. Basically, the staff helped folks with food a few times a week. Jane Cook was especially involved in that, so she could fill in more details. I guess the Church and Society group got things going, maybe 2003 or 4. Food at first was in the little closet behind my office and the communications office where AV equipment was stored. There was a door next to the receptionist's desk before that area was reconfigured. Then the pantry took over a closet on the 3rd floor, as well as the kitchen room on the 3rd floor of the old education building. We started to have regular volunteers and regular hours 2 days a week at that point. I think you, that meaning Mary, I believe, I think you were involved by then. I can remember the purchase of an additional freezer that was in that closet. Before too long, we got involved with the Oklahoma City Food Bank. I had experience with a couple of other churches that worked with the food bank before coming to McFarlin. At first, volunteers had to go to the food bank to pick up food, but after a few months, they started delivering to Norman. And he says, hope this helps. Take care, George.
Well, maybe it was earlier than 2006 then.
Yeah.
Well, he seems to think that it was at least moving that direction.
I think we were already moving toward a Tuesday, Thursday. Now, I don't think there was an afternoon at first. I'm thinking there was just 9 to 12.
Oh, we have
On
afternoon
Tuesday.
hours now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I think it was just the morning, 9 to 12, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
And then I think we did move to morning and afternoon when we were still here. But I know when we moved over there, we changed the hours, an hour longer in the afternoon.
Okay, so it was just 9 to 11.
Right.
That sounds right.
1
You're
to
right.
4.
Okay, so which one of you, go ahead and tell us of your involvement, what you were doing at first, and how you've watched things develop.
Well, evidently there was this closet, which I don't have experience with that closet. I do remember a freezer or a refrigerator being in that audio-visual room, and I don't know what we kept in there because my husband and I were trying to think, but it had to be frozen bread and
Margarine.
wieners
hot
and
dogs,
margarine.
Yeah.
which is what we did for the longest time. We would freeze all of them and tie them up in a plastic shopping bag. And then when we ran out of room and our numbers started growing, then when we got the storage up here in the classroom, we got another freezer up here. So when we ran out, we would have to come up to the third floor and get the grocery sacks that someone had bagged, put them on one of these little rickety carts and push them down the incline and all the way over to the elevator and take them downstairs. And that's my memory of how I worked out of a small, it wasn't a table like this, it was a table we set up out in the hallway and tried to maneuver around funerals or whatever was going on in the morning, which was a little tricky.
And I was the person upstairs bagging, and we used to, I
So
would
there's
say,
that
how
setup.
many people do you think you served in
Right.
one day, you know?
Now, let Joe focus in on that picture.
I have no idea. We were just working by ourselves. We didn't go to
Right.
2 people. It was just one
And
person.
I made the bags by myself, so I don't think it was a whole lot, you know.
It couldn't have been that much. Maybe 20 in a
20 in the
morning at the
morning.
most.
Yeah, I would say 20, yeah.
Now,
And
what floor is that on?
That's the ground, right across from the reception desk. That's Jane's
Oh,
office
sure.
right now.
Okay, okay.
Because remember, we
Yeah.
were just out there.
And I don't think that we had a standard, what we put in the bag. What we put in the bag is what we had. And eventually it did become standardized where we put the same amount of food in the bag, the same thing in the bag every week.
Thing, and we meet quarterly, and we all get together and say, you know, you don't have the facility, but you'd like to help, you can give money to these established pantries so that we're all kind of on the same page of what we're doing and not duplicating for these different missions. And like the back to school, we met 2 weeks ago, so everybody would know who the back to school service is, so we could send our people there.
And Mary makes a great document that lists all of the
I should
community
have brought
services,
that, I'm sorry.
yeah.
That's
It's
one
a-
of the most important
It
things
is,
I
I mean,
do.
they take that, you know, and it lists everything where they can go get
That's true.
bicycles or something, I mean, you know.
That's
It's
true.
everything from
Yeah.
transportation.
Yeah, it's a
3
wonderful,
pages.
and she spends a lot of time
It's 2
getting that.
pages, front
Yeah.
and back, and every
People
nonprofit in
appreciate it.
town calls me and say, can we have a copy of your list? Because
So
we
that
keep it
the people who
updated.
come into the food pantry receive
Have-
that list?
Yes.
If they want
There's
it.
a big stack in there, yeah.
And I share that with our other faith partners, all the other food
So,
pantries, and they help me keep it up to date.
So there was something else I was gonna say, that we have a lot, you know, that are the age of our volunteers. And it's a physical job, you know, it's, especially if you're carrying in boxes of produce and.
We have to use boxes, like today. I mean, they leave, if you have a family of 6, they can leave with a rack of ribs that are like this big, or they can get 3 smaller meats. About a month ago, we gave a pound of meat away per person. And we're getting
It just depends on the week,
USDA
yeah.
foods that are free foods from the food bank. But, I mean, they would have to make like 2 or 3 trips because they receive groceries, they receive half a gallon of milk. A month ago, families of 6 or more were receiving a gallon of milk. And it used to be that we went out and bought and could only afford to do
Yep.
a quart of milk.
Or no milk.
Or getting cartons of shelf milk. But through all these partners and through now
Christmas.
generous support funded from the church, it is now finally a budget item
Oh, is it?
that we have, well, it has to be. I mean, we have what's our,
I don't know, but I know the Christmas offering is always designated.
Dedicated.
And then they will make up the rest.
Yeah, that may have been where we originally got some of our money.
Now,
Well,
you
there's some
mentioned-
numbers.
you
It's
mentioned
about
that the-
$140,000 that we started with
Wow.
in January.
Yeah, that's
But,
terrific.
I mean, we're feeding, it's
Oh,
the
that-
most popular food pantry
We serve,
in Norman because we allow people to come every 14 days to get groceries. If you're starving, you can come every week and get a ready-to-eat bag, and then you can go around the room and shop. We allow both of those. Most pantries, you either shop or you say, here's what you get.
By shop, you mean choose,
Choose.
not pay.
They get the
get
choice
both.
that
It's a-
they can get hygiene items, they can get crackers, they can get cookies, one per shelf,
Produce.
USDA item,
lots of
bags
produce,
of pistachios
Yeah.
or coffee.
rotten bananas, no.
Yeah, yeah.
And all the produce now is in the middle. That's a new thing. And
Yeah.
we can get
So-
1,000 pounds of produce.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
we had avocados, potatoes, tomatoes.
Raspberries.
Cauliflower,
Yeah.
raspberry, blueberries,
And,
strawberries.
My husband is the produce manager now, and, you know, when the produce comes in, he comes over and he kind of culls through it, and he does have to throw away, or we donate it to a pig farm, I think, but he
I have to
does
call
have to
him
get
today.
rid of some of it, and some of the produce is kind of iffy, but people take it.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice, fresh food, you know, and it's,
You know, you said something to clarify for me. You say they can come every 14 days, so you do have some restrictions.
yes,
Oh,
we
yes,
do.
we've always
That's one
had
of
that
our big
restriction.
ones.
And we were saying 14 days, now we say it's every 2 weeks. Somebody may come on a Thursday and then they can't come until 2 weeks later on a Tuesday. It's not quite 14 days, and we just realized that the
the
argument
logistics of it, yeah.
is
And they
not
have
really worth
they
it.
have transportation problems, and you know, we're really trying to serve people and be as you know, we do have a few rules, and one of them is every 2 weeks, and one you have to bring your form of ID, and those are really only our two rules, is an ID and that you can
Picture
come-
ID.
Picture ID. And you
But
can
that's,
come. And
that's
if-
a challenge for most
It
people that
is.
are homeless
Yeah.
because they don't have
Yeah.
IDs.
Yeah.
So what's the ID for?
it's to make sure that
They're who they say
who
they
they
are.
say they are.
But if they're homeless,
Well, we
and, you
can
know,
give them, homeless, we just give them a different bag that they can
But we
come, like,
also
so we-
help the homeless get IDs. I mean,
Yes.
we can send them over to meet with a minister that can help them if they've had their ID stolen. Because you can't get any help
But-
in this town without
So
that.
if you come and you're a family, you know, you've come and you come and it's your day to get it, you come in and you have to check in with the person that's checking in at the computer. And then you go and talk to the person who's giving out milk, dogs, margarine, those kind of things. And you get a bag of food. And that bag of food has fruit and vegetables and tuna and mac and cheese. It's just a standard bag
Rice.
that baggers come on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. They come all week long to make bags. So they get that bag. And then they can go over to the other half of the pantry, and they can do their own shopping. And some of it is restricted. You can only have one of these, and some are not restricted at all. And it comes from two sources. One, it comes from community partners, and it also comes from the food bank and USDA. And so they have they get a standard bag, and they get choices.
So when they come in, they're logged in on the computer with
Yes.
that's how you keep up with
Yes.
this 14 days.
Right.
If they qualify and if they have ID that proves they live in Norman, Noble, or Little Axe. And that's one thing that's come from
And
the
that's the
utility
food-
assistance.
And that is
That we're
also a
only
food-
able to help those three communities.
That comes from the food bank. That's a food bank rule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that comes, you can only serve, because they have other food banks in other places, and so that they want, you know, this.
Go ahead and talk a little bit more about the regional food bank, as far as our relationship with them and how it works to get the food from them. Do we pay the
Yeah.
regional
Oh,
bank
yes.
something?
That's what
Oh,
we need.
yes.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about our
And
relationship
part,
with them.
you know, Karen's really the one to talk to about that. It used to be a real art that when these items would come up, at midnight. She'd have to be on the computer to grab them because they'd only be available at a certain time.
Oh,
And I don't know that that's true so much anymore, and we have the money to buy stuff, but, I mean, she's really watching the prices, and she's savvy in knowing, we can get cheaper bread now if we buy it at Aldi, or if we buy it at Walmart, or, milk or margarine or whatever. So she's really price shopping, and now the food bank is not always the most cost-effective place to spend to stretch our dollars. So she's very savvy in that
We get a ton of food.
regard. We've got food, when we get that stuff, like sometimes they'll have boxes of bread for us, 10 boxes, and we don't know where they're going. And if we didn't have those freezers and storage space, we couldn't take it to be able to give to people.
Do you know anything about the clientele, the background, why they are impoverished? You mentioned homeless, and that has its own explanation.
We have homeless people, we have elderly. We have quite a few elderly people who have found themselves fallen into poverty, especially after a spouse passes away.
I see.
Sick, handicapped,
Mentally
can't work.
ill. We had some, we just have, yeah.
Drug,
And then
alcohol abuse.
Yes, a lot of that. And then, just generational poverty. It just exists,
And the SNAP benefits, a lot of them, they
Going
just don't
down
go
and
far
down.
enough, and when they run out,
But
it really kicks up the last part of the month.
It does. Oh, my goodness.
Oh.
We had, we had
Was it 155
155
families in one day
Oh.
last week?
We were, by the time it was over, we were like,
Did you have
Somebody
anything left
told
to
me
give?
today, we're supposed to close at noon, and at 12:15, they
There's-
still had people going out the door.
Yeah.
That means lined up down that whole hallway out onto the porch. And when I got here at 8:30 this morning,
there
I
was
mean,
a
they're
line.
always lined up on the sidewalk before I get here at 8:20 sometimes. They're already out to the street sometimes.
Yeah. That's interesting, and the history of McFarlin's tied to the history of Norman. When I came here, the state shifted its emphasis and laws apparently on mental health. We have a mental health hospital here in Norman. And someplace along the 1980s, they decided to mainstream some mental health patients in halfway houses. We had them around Norman. And we noticed a definite uptick in appeals for help at that time.
To
And that
write
was
it
one
out.
of the problems we were confronted with. I want to say a good word about Vesta Bauman. Part of the ministry of the Thursday Assistance Program was to talk to people and listen to them as well as assist them. Now, our program and operation was much smaller than what you were doing. You can't afford to do that now.
Oh, it
But a
happens.
part of it was to treat them as human beings and persons.
Well, you know,
Listen to their story and go on.
Phil, I was going to say, if you go over there, I don't know a volunteer that, you lend them an ear, you talk to them, they'll end up talking to the
Oh, yes.
person.
It's
putting
a
them in.
community.
Yeah,
They all
it
know
really
each
is.
other.
Then, they go over to the refrigerator and they talk to the person who's, so they help each other. It is a very special place, and I know that we don't have specific people to be counselors, but I think they go there, you're right, it's a community, and I think that they feel better when they leave.
Yes.
Because they've been well treated, they've been treated humanely, they've been treated like they're our equals,
That's
we're
well
not.
said,
Yeah, it's a very interesting place to work at. I really have, I enjoy working there.
I think it's one of the most important things that we do. One thing that also grew out of this was these Tuesday Together meals that were started, was a dinner for, we call it a community dinner, but a lot of them are for our homeless community. And we have been doing that for maybe 5 years
Yeah.
now, 5 or 6 years.
Is that the dinner that's on?
The Tuesdays together,
Yeah.
the second Tuesday.
Does our kitchen do that?
Yes.
Yes, well, we're trying to keep it doing, we just lost our cook, and we just had a
Oh, no.
meeting.
We
So-
can't seem to hang on to a cook, can we?
Yeah, but
Tough
the
job.
Tuesday together dinner will go on, even
it
if
a
we have to
dinner
buy
or lunch?
pizza.
It's a
It's
dinner.
a dinner,
It's a dinner.
from 6 to 7.
And again, it's a place you go and you sit down and have a meal with people and talk to them.
And it's, it's something we work on to try, again, it's the most important thing we do. I mean, we preach going outside the walls, but this is the one chance we get to get people inside our church, under our roof, and, sit down. And then we have nobody from our church there to sit down and
Yeah.
visit with them.
So
And I
we
just-
need more McFarlin
We
members to
do.
come to
We
that.
do, and we keep screaming at Wendy or I do. It's like, we have got to get the word out. We need more volunteers, and we need people just to sit out there and sit at the tables and go, this is our church, and we can invite them to church. They may not come, but we need to invite them, or just have a rapport with them or talk with them. And it's been lacking for a long time. We don't have the support staff there, and it kind of has broken my heart. But it's started picking up, and people have realized how important that is. It really is wonderful to be able to share in a dinner. And we may never see them in our sanctuary.
And
But-
they're also, because of the nature of homelessness, it turns over. You might not see the same people. You'll see some for several weeks and then they're gone.
So how
you
many
know.
people will show up?
Well, we have tried to shoot for 50, and sometimes in the winter months, 30, and we've tried to bring our buses over and pick them up from the shelter. Another whole aspect of why this worked for so long is our homeless shelter
It was
was
close by,
2 blocks down the street, 3 blocks.
but now it's further.
And now it's a mile away.
Our-
But we
I
still
think-
try to get those same people, and it's,
Well, I
but
think
there's
the
no way to
number-
plan for
yeah,
it.
the
People,
number of
we
homeless-
see.
The number of homeless people we serve has gone down also.
But
really?
let me tell you, how many we had last month?
No.
We had 90.
Wow, well then that's
The
gone up
week,
again, yeah.
we had to move the date because of Vacation Bible School.
Oh, the,
And we had 75 the month before that, so there's no way of knowing how many are
This
gonna
this is
show
on the
up.
Tuesday night meeting.
yeah. And that came out of, I think, our food pantry. One of the things I think is interesting is that our volunteers, people come and volunteer, and some people just want to do what they're told, but so many, like Greg St. John, he was buying meat not buying meat, he was bringing up meat with somebody else, and he realized that he needed to come. He comes every Tuesday and Thursday when it's over, and he rotates the meat and reshelves it, and
So you have to take it from Bethlehem House and bring it in
was
once
just
we give it
getting
away.
stuck in there, and so he just took it on himself to do that. Paul Swinson realized that stuff needed to go from the Bethlehem House into the Aldersgate, and so
Stocking
he
room.
comes and he moves stuff, so people see jobs that need to be done. And I've had an anonymous person give us 2 freezers, or 1 freezer and 1 refrigerator. Yeah.
Bethlehem House, what's that?
That's what we call the annex.
The annex, it's what used to be
Okay.
The staff named that, by the way. We knew it would never roll
Yeah.
off the tongue.
I was
so-
trying to say
back
it
up.
because I call it the annex. It's
It's
the
the
extra
annex.
storage building,
It's
which
the
we
old-
would be in big
So
trouble.
this
what we do.
Bethlehem House is not the same as we hear through UMW and the
No,
Oklahoma
no.
City and all
It's
that.
the old lawnmower
Okay, the
storage
old lawnmower.
barn.
And it is
Okay.
great. We've got huge, they're not walk-in freezers and things, but they are huge.
They're state of the art.
Freezers
We got a
and
huge-
refrigerators.
In
We need
the-
to
in
talk
the
about that
Bethlehem
grant.
Yes. You need to come and have a visit
I
sometime.
will,
Yes.
I will.
This
Uh,
whole grant that we applied for back when Pastor Shiloh was here, that's been 6
yeah,
years
that was
now.
That was a
We
conference
applied-
grant.
And it was called,
I was asking what the name of it was. I can't remember, but it was a
People-
community, people.
to
I-
go out in the community,
Right.
to
But it was
not
a
wait for
conference
people to
grant,
come to
but
us.
yeah.
Did we get the grant?
Yes, we got.
Oh, yeah, that's what we bought the truck, and
Okay.
And then the next year we were able to
totally
do that.
gutted the
We've
lawnmower
gotten it twice.
barn.
Okay.
And the Methodist men in there added so many square feet, and
And we could have a really lovely
Insulation,
facility
too.
because
Insulation,
yeah.
air conditioning, brand new
we
floor.
wouldn't
It's-
have what we have if it wasn't for the Methodist men. I tell
That's,
you.
that's true of a lot of things
It's
in the
really the
church.
truth. And the Methodist, you know, like I know that a Methodist, UMW Circle makes all the bags for the homeless every month, you know.
That's a different,
Yeah, and,
thing.
yeah.
if you are not in a residence, you don't get groceries. You only get a little ready-to-eat bag
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
and the shopping
If you can't,
part.
if you can't prove
But
residency.
you can get that
Oh,
every
for
week.
homeless, okay,
You don't have to wait 14 days. You can come every week.
okay.
And
That's
some of them
great.
come twice.
Okay, and we kind of ventured onto the need for some bags, and maybe that's related to this homeless bag, the need for some that didn't require any kind of cooking or a kitchen to.
That's what the
that's
that's what the
homeless one
ready-to-eat
is.
bag.
Yeah, we don't call them homeless
Yeah,
bags.
we-
We call
I
them
call them that.
ready to eat.
But ready to eat.
Ready to
meals.
eat, yeah, that's a good. Well, let me recap my list here and make sure that we have covered everything. As I say, maybe I'll remind you of something that you forgot to say. We talked about where we first put that food pantry when it was established. We talked about when it got moved to Aldersgate House. And on the left side there, we talked about the establishment of Bethlehem House.
Yes.
Did we talk about legal restrictions on how a food pantry has to operate? Are there any legal, I
Well,
know you talked about restrictions
There
from.
are,
There are USDA
There are
restrictions.
USDA rules. You have to have food so far off the floor. You have to, your refrigerators and freezers, you have to record what their temperature every week, once a week. You can, and we just found out, and I'm not sure how, you have to clearly mark which food is USDA and which is not, you know, so.
Supposedly, when they fill out their paperwork, that we enter all that data into the software, there's a place on there that they have to sign that their income is below a certain amount, supposedly to qualify
So
for USDA food.
every time that somebody says, well, I don't know, and so I show them, you know, what it is, and they laugh at me. They said, I wish I made that much money, yeah.
So do you have to be able to identify where the different foods come from that go to people?
You have to, you just have to separate USDA in some way from the rest of the food. And I was just talking to Karen the other day, it turns out that people could only have USDA food once a month. So I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna manage that, but that's just a new rule that we found out about. But every time that we've been inspected, either by USDA or by the food bank, they have gone away saying, you guys are great, you know, so.
So you do have an inspection then?
Yes.
So we have to have an inspection by the regional food bank and their
then USDA
approval or?
Yeah, and I guess if you get written up, I don't know what, we have not been written up, so, you know.
But we also have to regulate, like, the temperatures on all the refrigerators and
And it has to be
report all of
recorded,
that.
yeah.
Okay,
once a
the
week.
reason I was asking about being able to identify where things came from, have you ever had anybody claim that they got sick from some of the food they got?
No, we
I
have
mean,
not.
that could happen, and, you know, we
No,
could have a serious illness, and I'm wondering, if
Right.
I remember them tracing things and telling us where
Where
the
it came from.
the
No, we haven't.
contaminated foods were located and so forth.
Now, we do occasionally get lists of these foods have been recalled or something, and so we'll go through the
I see.
food pantry and make sure we don't have those foods.
Mhm.
But no, we haven't had that. We've had several falls at food pantry.
Falls.
Falls,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the men came and fixed our worst problem, which was the
A
porch and the
huge
stairs.
step off
Oh,
onto
yeah.
the porch.
Yeah.
Now it has an upper,
Yeah,
a
they
deck
fixed
that makes
it's
it
great.
level.
And so but, you know, but I don't
It's
think
a
we've ever
really
been
old
sued or
house.
anything,
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Oh,
it has
yes.
a nasty old basement
Yeah.
that we
Mhm.
store. Actually, you know I have run into two people that I know that have lived in that house.
Oh, really?
Really?
One was Charles Hollingsworth,
Charles
He
lived in
grew
there when
up
he
in
was
that
growing
house.
up? Is that right?
and there's another guy, a small world, because when I'm picking up trash down on Classen Street, there's a Classen Presbyterian, the guy. I don't know how we talked about it,
Yeah.
Oh, my.
but he said,
Lived
you
in
know,
that-
I grew
that-
up
our
in
Aldersgate
that
house.
house.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Okay, we've talked quite a bit about the current operation, how you operate now. We talked about regulations, goals, and present operation, the policies. You talked about 2 weeks between a person's coming, except 1 week between the ones for the minimal, no kitchen. We talked about where the food comes from.
I have a stat here that I wrote at our July pantry meeting. Karen said that in March and April, we got 23,000 pounds of donated food from our community partners. In May and June, we got almost 27,000. And we now have 10 people that go and pick that up, and they have to pick it up, and it's hard work. I mean, it is heavy stuff.
Yeah, I've almost got my entire Sunday school class working for the food pantry.
Oh, that's good. Always a recruiter.
Yes.
It involves, you'd be surprised how many people.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it
But
does.
it's a
amazing.
well-oiled
Is there
machine.
any other program in Norman of comparable scope?
Nope.
No, I think
Is that right?
we need a bigger building.
I mean, I'm sure we're breaking fire rules.
Oh,
We
yeah.
shouldn't have that on tape.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say. Shame on you.
So let's talk about the innovations and the new ideas. We talked a little bit about the mobile food pantry. I don't know if that's really something that
Well, that came
originated
out
here.
of, no, it came
Came
out,
out of the grant.
it came, no, the idea, you know,
Oh,
for
the
a while, we had a
dreaming.
committee that was like looking into our future, you know, what could our future look like? And then, so I was at one of those meetings and because we were talking about
Right.
the food pantry.
That's right.
And so they said, well,
Vision-
what would you, a
vision
visioning committee,
2020.
what would you like? And I said, I would like to be able to take food to people, homebound people, you know, so maybe a little van or something, you know, and that's where, and they took it and ran with it, and we ended up with a mobile food pantry, you know. but-
We're talking, that was like a $50,000 grant
Yeah.
that we got. And they
And that
went,
was from the conference?
Yes. it's
Wow.
from-
and we got a
We've
second
got a
grant to
second
buy
one.
a second truck.
Yeah.
Nobody
Oh,
else
really?
is thinking that big.
Wow, that's
And,
wonderful.
and that grant also helped with the.
Yeah, the
Bethlehem.
gutting and redoing the whole Bethlehem.
There are 2 trucks now?
No, we
There-
haven't bought the second one yet.
We're waiting on how we're gonna partner with our 4 schools, right? Or 3 schools?
4. We
4
have
schools.
3 elementary and 1 middle school.
And if you take the food pantry to those
We
schools.
take them to, once a month, they go to each school, so that once a month they're going out, once a week they're going out, you know. And they have the same computer system. They have I actually was at Walmart checking out food, and it was for the pantry, so it was lots of hot dogs and stuff. And I said, oh, it's for the McFarlin pantry. And she goes, oh, I love the food truck that you guys bring to Irving. She says, I used to get email blasts, and I would know that you were going to be there. So they had email blasts they send out to,
I get a phone
message or a text blast or whatever. Anyways, so that goes out the day that, or sometime before they show up, and their program has grown. When we first started, they were serving 15, 20.
Words out.
Words out, yeah.
Well, now, are these the parents and adults that are coming to the
Yes,
truck or kids?
it's adults
Their-
that come
their
with their children.
families.
And it's just it's in the school parking lot.
Parking
You
lot.
don't have to have a kid that goes to that school.
So
to
they're
do that.
neighborhoods. You're going
Yeah.
into a neighborhood near a school.
And you're getting the standard bag, you're getting margarine hot dog and milk,
think
and a
so.
few little choices, I think, you know. But
So
it-
in the summer, when they don't go out to the schools, they're serving it out here on Saturdays, the 2nd and 4th or 1st and 3rd
I have no
Saturday.
idea.
In the gazebo on the church property.
And partly it's that, you know, we serve during the day, you know.
And this is for
and
families
this is for
after
working-
work.
Yeah, after work.
Parents.
How many people can they serve from one trip on the?
I don't know that.
Don't know how many they can carry. How
I
much
would
they
say
can carry.
50 or so.
I don't know that they have reached their capacity.
So they've never run out.
I don't,
They haven't turned anybody away.
I
I
don't
think they
know.
got pretty close, because Larry has come home, he drives for
Oh,
that,
uh-huh.
and they've gotten pretty close.
So Larry drives, and tell us just briefly, Richard Dennis's
Runs
involvement
the-
in it.
yeah.
Although these has to have a new, because he's aged out, they're getting a new chair.
yeah. And he
Because-
was the first, he ran, I mean, they recruited Richard to run that program. And so he's pretty much.
He was
does
already a
it-
food
Right, he
volunteer,
worked at the
but
pantry,
they
and he
stole
was my
him away
former,
from me.
he was my former principal, so I knew him. But he pretty much did the scheduling, the purchasing, and so, but as he's grown, he's gotten shoppers and you know, and baggers, and just like we are, but just a little smaller. And when we first started, we were real worried about keeping our funds separate, but I don't think we worry about that anymore.
Okay, other innovations and new things we've started. I had made a note here that tell us about the idea of having children's books available for the families.
Karen and I have gone to when the library has really, like buy a bag of books for a nickel, we've gone and gotten books and just put them out for kids, and then somebody took it upon themselves to buy coloring books and crayons. I think Lori Smith does that pretty much, and then there's other people that buy
Whitman's
diapers.
do that, Kathy.
Yeah, Wittens, I mean, so people, and
Ted.
then we also have a diaper closet that people saw a need and do it. And
We
then
have a diaper lady in this church.
Yes.
Every time I call and say we're low.
She'll
And
do
even, I called somebody else, I called the Villiards, and they went and got 5s and 6s, and I get to the pantry this morning and there are 4s, 5s, and 6s.
No, 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Melissa Edwards.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
I don't know how much money she spends every year,
Oh, yeah.
but we have every size of diaper. We have people that buy wipes.
Yeah.
Depends, we have women's Depends, men's Depends, we have hygiene products.
And then travelers bring travel.
We have hygiene items that we
Yeah.
put out. We try to get the Wesley, has been
Toilet
better in the
paper.
past. It's not really worked out recently, but they did a huge
Toilet
toilet paper drive for us every
Because you
year.
can't buy toilet paper with food stamps. You can't, so.
And that's what they value more than anything. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to, where are we
Sometimes,
buying?
I don't know, sometimes we get it from the food bank.
I think
don't-
Rick Davis was buying it
Buying it.
from Homeland.
Yeah.
But very important to have toilet paper. So we were trying to get people from the congregation to
And then,
donate it.
this really didn't come from the food pantry, but Christy Varva started a winter coat program, and for a while we were able to do it in our pantry, but we just don't have the room anymore. I mean, we're
It's
just so full
huge.
that you do it at the
Well, we're looking for a coat pantry chair.
Yeah.
Pantry.
But it had moved to the fourth floor.
2-in-1 classes room.
Well, and
Yeah.
now that it moved down and they're doing it, Jane's doing it with the staff during the week, so they've got to have it down there
yeah.
close, and that's why it moved to the 2-in-1 classroom.
Yeah.
But it is huge now. I mean, it looks like the cleaners in there. I mean, we have stacks of coats.
Yeah.
We'll be ready to go for next year, but that's a
Wow.
whole, and then all the little quilt
that have any
people
connection?
and
Did
the
that come out of-
crochet and the knit people, they make scarves and mittens and hats and stuff that we give away. There's just,
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk for hours
Well, and
about
also,
everything that goes on.
One of our, Donna Barnes, sometimes people in poverty have literacy problems and they have a hard time filling out forms and stuff. And so she started a thing where she helps people fill out for SNAP, so once a month or, I don't know
She
how.
came to Tuesday's, the dinner last,
Yeah, and so she
Month.
started that, and that came out of that, so. And she's one who, she came and she saw that we really needed some places to put our produce in the middle of our floor, so she got that taken care of, so people see a need and take care of it.
Do you think of anything that I have forgotten that we should mention here? And my next question is going to be what your dreams are, but just first of all, have we forgotten anything?
well, my wish as of this week is to get about 10 more volunteers. We've been trying to get the word out we do an annual training every year, 1st of September. So I try to get the rookies and the neophytes together and train everybody to get on the same page. And then we have the people that have been there forever, and everybody's got their own way of doing things. And it's like herding cats to try to get everybody trained. And working with each other, and I have lots of people that don't like to work with certain people and everything, but it's just
Will
like.
they
we're-
tell you that or not?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
oh, yeah. And I want them to tell me, because we lost a very important volunteer recently that never shared that until it was too late, and they left upset, and I lost a really good volunteer.
God bless the Christians.
Well, let's go ahead then with your, Mary told one of her dreams. Tell us what would be your visions, what would you like to see happen in
Well,
the future with the
you
food
know,
pantry
I
now?
know that we've talked about, I mean, I know that the church is, I mean, the committees, the visioning committees, I've been on several where we've talked about having another building, you know, in that empty area.
Off-site.
Not off-site, just
Or-
a new building that would,
Yeah.
you know.
Separate.
And that would have a pantry in it. And I remember the first time I went, I'd been working in our pantry, and I went over to Skyline and worked at Skyline one Saturday, and it was like I had pantry envy because because they had walk-in freezers,
Yeah.
and it's like it truly is. I mean,
Cross
they
Point has
have
that too.
they have buggies that people go. They come in depending on the size of their family. They're given a piece of paper. So if you're one person, you get so much. If you're a family of 7, you get so much. And then
Kinda
they
like the
go
Christmas
around.
store.
They go around. They shop. And then the volunteers check them out, and they say, "Okay, you can have 4 of this." And so, "Oh, you made 5. I'll take 1 from you." You know, and they check out, and off they go. And I mean, it would just be phenomenal to have something like that.
You know, you need to start talking about purchasing the building to the east of the church.
Yeah.
And just
We've-
let that filter out there, and we'll get there one of these days.
Yeah, because that would be a perfect building.
Well,
Absolutely.
I've gone to the trustees.
Yeah.
And I've put
I
my
think,
little
you know, I
PowerPoint
think-
with everybody crammed in there and stuff stacked to the ceiling that you can barely get in there. I mean, they know
I-
the issue.
I think part of the problem is every time that we start talking about growing and building, then we have a downturn in the economy and people get scared.
Yes,
And so
yes.
then, you know, that's put on the back burner. And so then when things get good again, then you have to start all over again. It's like, that's a natural thing. I mean,
It is a natural thing, but that building over there is highly overpriced. One of these days,
Yes,
it's
it's
gonna
gonna-
come in range.
Yeah, and you
What
know
building are we
what,
talking
as
about
much,
But what do they call that?
Oh.
The old bar.
I know, I
Are they
know.
Oh, the
using
other
that
one
anymore?
across-
I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody in
I think
it.
it's empty right now.
Yeah.
Well,
It had
but
Sunday school
the
classes in it for a
the
while.
Democrats have all their watch parties over
Oh,
there, so
yeah.
it's still a bar.
But not only during elections.
You didn't say that.
I did.
I did. But you know,
Well, it has
despite
a
that,
license associated with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the overflow of the bar on that campus
I
corner.
want you to
Does
take
that
that
building belong
comment
to
back.
McFarlin?
Well, it's one of our members who threw the party over there.
Does that building belong to McFarlin, or are we just
no,
talking
No,
no, we're just
I'm
talking
looking
about,
for
it
to
would
come
be a
up for
good
sale.
building to purchase. We've talked about, early on, we talked about just using it for storage, you know,
Yeah,
but
I
now
thought
we-
it had issues of
I
some
don't know.
kind.
But you know, despite all of that, I am very, very proud to be a member of a church that can do what we do.
This
I mean,
is an impressive program, and you all are to be congratulated or bragged on or something.
Or
It's just great.
pitied or something.
No, I pitied.
Well, I go and speak to the Catholics. I'm invited by other
I have
churches to
gone
go
and spoke to
and
First
talk
Christians. I've gone and spoke to
and talk
them.
about,
Yeah.
and it's,
Oh, really?
If you can just now get the Christians to work with one another.
Yeah. Now, First Christian, they have a community garden and they bring us their
oh,
produce.
that's right, we should mention that because,
It's right across the street
and now we
from
feel
us.
really bad because we're getting 25 boxes of produce
And they bring us this
they bring
little-
their little sack of onions in. I just dug these up across the street, and then they're
They go
looking at
very-
this big old.
yeah.
And I said, "Yours are very special. I mean, they
They'll
look
go right away.
fresh and
Yeah.
really top produce. They're not like this rotten stuff that Target gave us from a week ago."
No,
So we don't keep
Mary,
it
you're
that long.
getting complete out of line. Take the word of Target back now.
It's,
Now,
I
okay, Nancy told
told
us
it
her
today.
wishes and her dreams. Phil, what are your visions?
You know, I don't
As one-
have
as
a
one who
dream
was in at the
except
beginning.
property. I think that's a very good point,
Yeah.
and that's possible for this church
I
someplace.
think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I foresee it, you know.
One thing my husband keeps saying is, we are getting close to the realization that we're gonna have so many people that we're gonna have to do something, because our numbers are growing. I mean, seriously, we served 155 families,
In one day.
155 households in 6 hours in one day. And at some point, we're gonna have to put a limit on something because of space.
Or
Luckily,
volunteer.
not money, maybe volunteers. And, you know, the church is behind us with the money, and the food bank,
Oh,
you know,
I think we
being
have lots
savvy.
of support. We're just getting so big, we're gonna,
And the food bank is twice a week, right?
the food bank
Tuesday.
comes twice a month.
Twice a month.
You're talking about,
Our open days,
yes,
Tuesday and Thursday.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So you're
For
serving
9 to
like
12 and
150
1 to
some
4.
twice a week.
You have a budget now, and you
Right.
said that was over $100,000.
$150,000.
I just think that's phenomenal.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is.
Makes you proud.
Yes.
Well, if nobody has anything else you want to add to this, I appreciate you coming
Thank you
again. I
for
appreciate you
asking
being
us.
here, taking this time out and giving us
There's
your
some,
memories
Right.
and your dreams.
The mobile.
Thank you.
And Beverly, we thank you and Joe
For
for
doing this.
conducting these
Yes.
oral histories.
It's fun.
I just never want to see it.
So this was in 19,
140,000?
that's
Are
what
we
we
off?
had. Now, that's
Yeah,
after
kill 'em.
the Christmas
Yeah.
offering, which is
Yeah, turn it
our
off.
big